Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. And today I'm talking about, what if we work together? What if you are trying to do some kind of like no contact period, you're trying to reattract someone who you work with. So obviously, if you're doing no contact and you're trying to reattract someone, and there's hope that you will actually reattract them, because obviously if it's someone who has consistently said to you they're not into you, they haven't displayed any signs that they're into you, then you're kind of beating at a dead horse there. So you don't want to really be trying to get someone back who isn't displaying any kind of interest in you whatsoever. But anyway, what can you do then if this is someone who could potentially fall back in love with you, who does potentially have a crush on you, and you're trying to get them to like you, but you don't know how to do that. You don't know how to basically do no contact with someone who you work with. So the best advice I have for this, and it's really, really simple, and that is, obviously you should not, if you like someone, you should not ignore them and be cold to them, right? Because basically that will mean they can't approach you. Because if you're cold and distant from them, like when they approach you, no one likes to, have to talk to someone who's being cold and distant from them. It makes them feel like they've done something wrong. So for an example, I've kind of spoken about this at some point, but basically, I have a tale of two grandmothers, right? So one grandmother who I sometimes wouldn't see, sometimes I would see a lot. But anyway, whenever I went round her house, no matter how long the time had been, she was always really happy and pleased to see me, no matter how long I had not spoken to her or seen her, right? Whereas I had also had another grandmother, and whenever I went round her house, no matter what, she would be mad that I had come because she hadn't seen me in such a long time. She would say things like, "Oh, who's that?" Like as if she didn't know who I was because I'd been gone that long. She's like, "Oh, who are you?" But she knew full well who I was, right? Or she would say something like, "Oh, finally, you've showed up," something like that. You don't want to be behaving in a cold, mean way to the person that you are doing no contact with, okay? Because, no one likes it. I always spent more time with that other grandmother. That other grandmother, I loved dearly because of how she treated me. Like, no matter what, she always had a smile for me. She was always happy to see me, right? And that's basically what you've got to do when you interact with this person who you're trying to reattract or trying to get into a romantic relationship with, or try to reattract them, whatever it may be, right? You don't want to be cold. You don't want to be mean to them, okay? Because that's going to make them want to avoid you. So I've always seen that other grandmother more than I saw this one, because this one was always nice to me, so I would go and visit her more. This one I would avoid like the plague because I just felt awful when I was around her because of how cold she was, right? So with that being said, when the person that you like, the person that you're trying to reattract, the person that you're in no contact with, approaches you, always be happy to see them. Now, I'm not saying that you should be very excited and very and elaborate on how you feel about them or do anything romantic for them or anything like that. The point is that perhaps you just treat them like everybody else that you work with. Because no doubt, like if you go into work, you're probably like, "Hey, good morning" to everybody, or "Good afternoon," depending on what time you start work. You're probably really happy and talking to people and chatting away, and you're probably saying hello and good morning. Do exactly the same with the person that you're in no contact with. Basically, you don't want to give them any special treatment. And special treatment could be giving them the cold shoulder. If you're treating them differently than your other colleagues, that's the worst thing you could do. And other special treatment is being overly happy when they see you, being overly nice to them, being ass kissy or whatever it may be. You need to treat them exactly the same as everybody else that you work with, and treat them just like a regular colleague, right? Treat them like everybody else, because the moment you start treating them differently than everybody else that you work with is when no contact is not going to work, right, with you. It's going to not work because you are essentially making them, because they'll be able to tell that you are treating them differently than everybody else. What's really going to perk their interest, what's really going to make them wonder about you, is if you treat them like everybody else and they're not special at all in any way, right? And again, that doesn't mean that you're mean to them, because if you're mean to them and you're treating them like they're nothing, that also means that you're actually treating them like they're something, if that makes sense. If you're behaving in any way that kind of separates them from the crowd, from the rest of your colleagues, they are getting special treatment, whether that's bad treatment or whether that's good treatment. You have to treat them exactly the same. So just be happy, just be polite to them. Just be like how you are with everybody else at your workplace. Okay, and that's how you do no contact with someone that you work with, because obviously if you work with them, then you know you're going to be in contact at some point. So how do you behave? You just treat them like everybody else. You just say good morning, you say hi, you say, talk about the weather, whatever you do with everybody else, right? And it might be the case that you're kind of always quiet at work. Well, again, just be who you are with everybody else that you work with. It might be the case that you're very extroverted at work, and again, treat them like you treat everybody else. And that's basically how you do it, right? So obviously it can be a bit tough, because these things are obviously easier said than done, right? This is obviously a lot easier said than done, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy. So you need to kind of get rid of any temptations, or at least try to restrain yourself when you are around them, because sometimes it can go a couple of ways. Sometimes I remember when I was at school, and if I really liked someone at school, I would get really eccentric around them and be like saying loads of jokes and trying to get their attention by like my just crappy jokes, who don't do anything like that. And I know it can be difficult for some people who do have that tendency, like what I do, but that's, not a good thing that you can do. And obviously the other end of that is, being cold or being mean to them or anything like that. Basically, you just really want to rein in any enthusiasm or any like bitterness you have towards them and just let it go, right? You have to let it go. So avoid doing anything that's going to make you stand out. Don't do anything. Don't try and draw attention to yourself, because that's not a good thing to do. It really, really isn't. Just try to remain calm and cool. And, if they're in the room a lot, don't look at them. Just try not to look at them. Carry on with your work. Don't, obviously, if they come in and they say good morning to everybody, then you can look at them and say good morning. But if they're, really close to you all the time, just really focus on your work. And that's another great way that you can do no contact at work. Just get on with your work, go head first into your work. And if you get really focused and you get into a flow state when you're at work, then it's going to be so much more easier to just ignore them and not pay much attention to them and not give them that special treatment, right? Because you're just busy doing your job. And that's a really effective way to do no contact at work. Just get really, kind of like head deep, in your work, and, become like a bit of a workaholic at work. Just keep on doing it. Don't spend so much time, at the water cooler, don't spend as much time on your breaks. Try and get as much, try and fill your time like loads when you're at work, and just really focus on your job. And I think that will be really beneficial to you as well, because then you won't have time to stare at her or him. You won't have time to do those things. You won't have time to like be talking about, her to your other colleagues and things like that, or him to your other colleagues, whatever it may be. So that's what you should do when you work together. Don't treat them any different than anyone else that you work with, and just get really, really busy at work. And if they like you, and if they want to be with you, if they want you back, if this is an ex, then eventually they will start reaching out to you. If, of course, if they still like you, because they have to still like you to come back. If this is someone that's far too gone, then they will never come back. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. If there's anything that you would like me to discuss in a future video, then please leave it down in the comments. If you have a question, I can answer it in a video. So please let me know so I can do that for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye, guys.